All right, I can use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. This quadratic formula, which I derived in another video, and then I just now saw that it's actually in the book. So I guess I wasn't the first one to discover it. Just kidding. I didn't think I was. I didn't notice that it was in the book before. But if you want to see how to derive it, you can watch my video. You can log on to the online book and look at it. But we get this formula, we actually get it from completing the square. If you take the letters in standard form and complete the square and then solve for x, this is what you would get. Okay, so this is just the simplified, finalized version of completing the square for any quadratic equation. And so the quadratic formula, we use this to solve any. So standard form of a quadratic is f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. We use those letters in the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Those are multiplication, divided by 2 times a. Okay, you might make up a story. I know that I've heard a couple, something about a boy was feeling negative because he couldn't go to a square dance, maybe, b squared. Maybe not, I don't know. Something about 4 awesome chicas. I think that was the 4AC. I don't know why they're dividing by 2. Awesome. Anyway, you might come up with a story just so you can remember which letters go where. Or you could just memorize the formula. I've said it and memorized it so many times. It just is in my head forever. You can program it in your calculator, but you can't use that calculator on the test. I would recommend writing that down on the note sheet. You are allowed to have one note sheet for your final. I would write that down on there. Okay. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The b squared minus 4ac is something we call the determinant, but we'll go over that in the next video. So let's say we have this one. Let's say we have f of x. So here's our example. F of x is equal to x squared minus 4x minus 7, and that's going to equal 0. Okay, so just looking at this, our a is equal to 1, our b is equal to negative 4, our c is equal to negative 7. If we tried to factor this, right, negative 7 and negative 4, I need 2 factors that if I multiply them, I get negative 7. Well, the only factors for negative 7 that are whole numbers is negative 7 and 1, or negative 1 and 7. There's no way of getting negative 4 from that. So we can't do it that way, but we can use the quadratic formula. So I'm just going to plug things in. Negative b, well, b is negative 4, so negative negative 4. So I'm going to say x equals negative negative 4 gives me a positive 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4 gives me a positive 16, minus 4 times 1 times negative 7. That negative 7 is nice because that makes it actually a positive. All divided by 2 times a, which is just 2 in this case, 2 times 1. Okay, so I'm going to simplify the radical. That's that check mark division box thing is called a radical, if you didn't know that. 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 28 all over 2. 16 plus 28 is 44, I believe. So we have 4 plus or minus the square root of 44 all over 2. 44, I want to keep it in the radical. We will get a decimal approximation at the end, but I want to keep it in the radical for now. So over here on the side, I'm going to say, okay, the square root of 44, that's 11 and 4. 4 is a perfect square. I can take out the perfect square. The square root of 4 is 2. And so I've got 4 plus or minus 2 root 11, all divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so that gives me 2 plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so 2 plus or minus the square root of 11. And that at this point, you might want to plug it into a calculator, so I'm going to do 2 plus the square root of 11 first. And that gives me, so x is approximately equal to 5.32. I'm just going to round it off right there. And then 2 minus the square root of 11 is x is also approximately equal to negative 1.32. Okay, we'll just round it like that. And those are the two places where our graph would cross the x-axis, is right around 5.32 and negative 1.32. The ones where you can't factor, or I mean, technically you could still complete the square. Really, that's all we're doing, is we're completing the square. We've just shifted everything away so that we're solving for x right away. Okay, and that's probably enough on the intro for quadratic equations.